My name is Sora Mitchell, and if there's one thing I will learn in this life, it's that everything happens for a reason. Even the pain, even the loss, even the moments when you feel completely lost. I did not always believe that though. For a long time, I thought life was just a series of random events, some good, some bad, with no meaning, no purpose. But I was wrong. Because when I lost everything I thought I needed, I discovered something far greater. That God always has a plan for me, even when I could not see it. It all began 3 years ago. I was living in New York City, working as an assistant in a marketing firm, chasing deadlines, promotions, and approval. My life looked perfect from the outside. I had a good job, a nice apartment, and friends who filled my weekends with laughter. But inside, I was falling apart. My mother had passed away suddenly from a heart attack, and my father had left a year earlier. I was an only child, and the loneliness was like a shadow that followed me everywhere. I tried to fill the emptiness with work, thinking success would make me feel whole again. But the more I achieved, the emptier I felt. One cold December morning, everything changed. I was on my way to work, rushing through the subway station, when I got a call from my boss. He did not even bother with sympathy. Sarah, he said, the company is cutting costs. I am sorry, but today will be your last day. I froze. The train roared past, the wind from the tunnel hitting my face, but I felt nothing. I had given everything to that job, and in a single phone call, it was gone. I stood there for minutes, phone still in my hand, wondering what to do. Rent was due, savings were low, and I had no family to turn to. I remember whispering under my breath, why God, why me? I did not get an answer, at least not then. I spent the next few weeks applying for jobs, but nothing worked out. Rejection after rejection, each one heavier than the last. My landlord warned me that if I could not pay by next month, I'd have to leave. I barely ate, barely slept, and every night I cried until I could not anymore. I started to question everything, my worth, my purpose, and even my faith. I had not prayed properly in years, but one night, sitting by the window with tears streaming down my face, I whispered, God, if you are real, show me what to do. I cannot do this alone anymore. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a walk. The sky was grey, the air cold, but something in me felt lighter. I did not have answers, but for the first time I had peace. I walked aimlessly until I reached a small park I had never noticed before. There was a bench under a large oak tree, and sitting there was an elderly woman feeding pigeons. She smiled at me and said, you need to sit down." I hesitated but then joined her. We talked and somehow I ended up telling her everything about losing my job, my mother, and my faith. She listened quietly and then said, "My dear, sometimes God closes doors because we are not meant to live in those rooms anymore. Trust that He is leading you to something better." Her words hit me like a wave. I did not know this woman, but it felt like she spoke directly to my soul. Before I felt, she handed me a small card. It had a Bible verse written on it. "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." I went home and read that verse again and again. Something shifted inside me. I did not know what my future looked like, but for the first time I believed it was not over. I started volunteering at a local community kitchen to keep myself busy. The first few days I felt out of place, but soon I began to enjoy it. The people there were not wealthy or successful, but they were kind, humble, and grateful for every small thing. Working there changed me. I realized how much time I had spent chasing things that did not matter. I began to see beauty in simplicity, peace in kindness, and strength in faith. One afternoon, a man named Daniel joined as a volunteer. He was quite gentle and always smiling. Over time, we started talking, and I learned that he had once been a successful architect who lost everything after a tragic accident. But instead of giving up, he turned his pain into purpose, dedicating his life to helping others. We grew close not because of shared success, but because of shared struggle. One day, while we were cleaning up after a meal service, Daniel said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes, Sarah, when God takes everything away, it's not punishment, it's preparation. He is making room for what next." That night I prayed again, but this time not to ask for anything, just to thank God for the strength to keep going. Weeks turned into months, and slowly my life began to change. A woman who ran a local charity noticed my dedication and offered me a position as a community outreach coordinator. It was not a big job, but it filled me with purpose. I loved helping others, seeing hope return to faces that had forgotten how to smile. I felt alive again. And then something unexpected happened. Daniel and I fell in love. Not the kind of love you see in movies, but something deeper, built on faith, respect, and shared healing. We did not have much, but we had peace, and that was enough. A year later, we started a small non-profit together to help unemployed women find jobs and rebuild their lives. Standing in that tiny office, surrounded by people who had once felt as lost as I did, I realized how far I had come. I thought back to that cold December morning when I lost my job and everything seemed hopeless. I smiled because now I understood it was not the end. It was the beginning of the life I was meant to live. Every pain, every tear, every unanswered prayer had led me here. God had been writing my story all along, even when I could not see the page. Now, whenever someone tells me they lost faith, I tell them my story. I tell them how losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because through the brokenness I found my purpose. Through the silence I heard God's voice. Through the loss I found love. And now, when I face hard days, I remind myself of that verse. For I know the plans I have for you. And I whisper, yes, Lord, I trust you. Because I finally understand God's plan is not always what we expect, but it's always what we need.